I'm Pat Reiten, President of Pacific Power and Chairman of the Oregon Business Planning Steering Committee. But why am I really up here? I'll give you 3 reasons. First, I'm an Oregonian. My mother's relatives came over on the Oregon Trail in the 1880s. My wife Randy and I are raising 3 kids in Portland, and I care about what happens here. Second, I work for a company that has a lot at stake. More than 500,000 customers of Pacific Power live in Oregon in about 200 communities. We've been around for 100 years. We serve our own facilities in 31 of 36 counties in this state and are committed and closely tied to the health and success of the communities we serve. They range from the Pendleton Roundup grounds to Pioneer Courthouse Square. So you can see why we're committed to the fact that this isn't the Portland business plan. It's not the Salem business plan. It's the Oregon business plan. So all of Oregon needs to own it. Reason 3, and I think I share this with all of you, it's the right thing. It's just the right thing. Our state's in trouble, and we have to fix that. We have to have a plan. Well, we have one. Many of you haven't had a hand in building it, and because you're here today, I believe you're committed to executing that plan too. The 2010 Oregon Business Summit is a major threshold in the process of the Oregon Business Plan. We spent the year listening and discussing and carefully writing things down. The result is the plan we have in our hands today, and today we launch the initiative to begin implementing, to making it happen. Today we started with morning sessions focused on the regions. We heard from our federal leaders and our governor. We'll hear from some tremendous specialists on the importance and the how-tos of effective action, and from our governor-elect on his commitment and ideas going forward. And we'll talk with key public, private, and elected leaders about getting to work and getting the work done. Then, using breakout sessions, we'll actually start refining and taking responsibility for the tasks at hand. Increasing jobs and income, reinventing our approach to delivering critical services, and redesigning how we pay for it. Finally, we'll get back together in the afternoon and get on the same page and acknowledge one good day's work and the promise of many more. That will lead to our shared vision of a better, more prosperous Oregon, an Oregon that won't settle for business as usual. We've heard you. We get it. We've attempted to be very specific and focused with our recommendations this year. We know that there could be improvements to them, and we'll be working with you over the next several weeks to refine them, but there's no time to waste. We must come together on a plan of action and begin implementing it right now. Traveling the state this year, talking with you, doing the essential listening and intelligence gathering, an image has begun to form. It's the image of the future Oregon we want. An image of small towns, large cities, regional communities. In all of them, people are working. Whether it's agriculture, trade, high-tech, services, manufacturing, or hospitality, they're earning a living, either employing or being employed at above average wages. And because they're working, earning a living and taking care of their own, Oregonians are also united in supporting public services and government, because government is doing better and more with what it has. And government is providing greater, legitimate value for the dollars that they're given by the working citizens and businesses in every corner of the state. Freight is moving, students are achieving, people are healthy, those that aren't are cared for. Culture flourishes, businesses prosper, and these things happen in ways that make sense for each community and region, and therefore make sense for all of Oregon. We got this image by having a plan and by coming together to make the plan work. And the plan works because a lot of people from all over Oregon owned it. And owning a piece of it meant they owned the whole thing. The plan was well researched and then simply clearly prioritized. The plan was accessible, achievable, and measurable. There isn't anything magical about it. It was based on tough choices, hard work, relentless focus, and unselfish commitment. And that's why it worked. What we're here to do today is begin taking action on just such a plan. There are three essential things you need to know about the plan. First, it has a goal, a vision for where we can and should be. Second, it requires a different approach than business as usual. And it has, third, the details of what it will take to get there. So thank you for your indulgence. There's a reason why it's an image I hold on to and want to see realized, because it's absolutely not where we are today. Most of you know the story. For the past 10 years, it's been an extremely difficult time, and looking back at them, it's pretty sobering. Now, let me share a bit about what I mean there. Oregon is high-centered in the middle of excruciating, challenging times. Even without numbers, we can feel it every day. But ugly statistics are staring us right in the face. The predictable language is that statewide, unemployment is hovering at 10.2%. Here's a simple translation. Fully 10% of our neighbors don't have a job. They aren't earning wages, any wages. They aren't earning a living, and not earning a living isn't much living at all. And it's much worse in rural Oregon. Some of our communities are suffering unemployment of up to 16%, and we're all feeling it. The metro area has a substantial number of jobs that are absolutely dependent on a strong rural economy. Now, some want to blame it on the national or global economies, but the problem started well before this recession. Let's go back a ways. Oregon's income per capita has been in a steady, grinding slide for more than a decade, since the late 1990s. Our per capita income stands at 91% of the national average. Our state's lowest ranking in that measure since 1929. Here's a simple translation. We're making less than the average American. Our personal income that supports our families in our state is below average and is continuing to decline. By contrast, our neighbor to the north is currently at 105% of average. That's above average. Washington is above average. So we can all do that math. 3 miles from this room north equals 105%. If you take the Portland metro area out of the equation, the rest of the state is running at 75% of the national average. And yes, you heard me right. That's 75% of the national average. That's below average. It's not just below average, it's well below average, and that's well below acceptable. Subpar income growth has weakened our public sector. Here's a translation. When people aren't earning, they can't pay for government. Over the last 4 decades, Oregonians have consistently committed about 16% of their incomes to state and local governments, about 5% to the general lottery fund. Those percentages have held in good times and bad. Consciously or not, Oregonians have set their price of government. Today, that 16% doesn't go as far as we'd like it. It doesn't go as far as it has to or needs to. Costs have grown as income has declined, and that's a self-destructive, inverse relationship that can never match up as long as it's business as usual. And if that isn't bad, the cost of the Oregon Health Plan and corrections have actually outpaced our income growth, and that's an unsustainable relationship that crowds out other investments in education and frankly, most everything else. The fact is, in an age where Oregonians like to tout sustainability, in a very real sense, our state isn't. These numbers and trends prove it. Our situation is not sustainable. So if we look into the business as usual crystal ball, the forecast is bleak. Economists tell us it could take several years for employment to return to pre-recession levels. I'll tell you that our own company's load forecasts project that same thing. Our population is aging, leaving a less experienced and educated workforce in its place, and straining our social services and our pension system. Low investment in education and high personal tax rates that discourage investment inevitably mean further erosion of personal income levels. On top of a decade of decline, all this leads us to what will most likely be a decade of deficits, from which it'll take a generation to recover. That crystal ball is based on where we are today. All things being equal, continuing the same way we have, business as usual. I'm here to tell you that business as usual isn't acceptable. It isn't making it. It doesn't work. Those things aren't equal, and they have to change, and not business as usual has to be our mindset. Not business as usual has to be the plan. These are the circumstances that the Oregon Business Plan for 2010 must address. That means you, and that means me. We must address those factors. Change means different from how things are now. Change means not decline, but growth. Change, and not cutting services more and raising higher taxes, but redesigning services and growing income. Those are the changes we're talking about. Those are the changes embedded in the Oregon Business Plan. But before we can propose and debate policies on job growth, we Oregonians have to ask and answer a question. Do we want income and jobs to grow? Through the mid-1990s, we grew incomes and won awards for economic development. And then, as many of you may recall, we ended up ending the decade of the 90s telling Intel we didn't want more high-paying jobs. Is that still our mindset today? If we don't embrace growth when growth is ready to happen, we'll always be a low-income state. And I will tell you that's not my image of Oregon, and just guessing, it's not yours either. I don't buy that visit but don't stay is woven into our genetic code. And I don't buy that we're okay just paralleling other low-income states in the weakened condition of their education, health care, and public safety services. We know from visiting with its leaders all around Oregon that the business community sees a better future. We share that positive image of Oregon's future. Our goal is to create quality jobs in every corner of the state. So let's talk about what that means. Specifically, we want to create 25,000 jobs per year for the next 10 years and raise Oregon's per capita income to the national average by 2020. And I'll say at least to average because nobody aspires to be average. How do we know that's meaningful change? Because jobs help us pay for what we want, and creating high-wage jobs moves us that more quickly to our goal in 2020. Just what would getting to average income buy us? About $1 billion more per year in our general fund. Around $700 million more per year for our K through 12 schools. 55,000 fewer Oregonians in poverty, and $335 million more in charitable giving. And that's just from getting us back to average. Think of the difference if we really want to create change. So how do we get there? First, we need innovative, globally competitive industries, businesses and sectors. The export sector drives growth in other sectors of the system, literally supporting jobs in schools, hospitals, restaurants, and the rest of the economy. Some of these export companies are large, but I'll tell you, most of them are small, 88%. Those industries tend to cluster around shared resources, such as talent and suppliers. When we focus on those clusters, we can promote high-wage jobs in Oregon's communities. Jobs mean there are businesses employing people. Employed people buy things, goods, services. They pay taxes. They support causes. Those are the things that make up the economy. And if we're creating jobs, then we're breaking out of our downward cycle. The good news is that we already have innovative industries all over the state. I know because my company serves them, and we met them as we traveled around the state this year. Forestry and ag, high-tech, advanced manufacturing, sports and outdoor apparel, clean technology, creative industries. They're at the core, the rock that helps create the ripple effect of jobs creation.